Never full. Welcome back to Weekly Wisdom. I'm Pastor Cheryl. This week we continue with our second installment of the Inevitable series. And this week we will be reading again from Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verses 6 through 7. And they read, "The wind blows to the south, goes around to the north. Around and around blows the wind. The wind returns to its rounds again. All streams flow to the sea, but the sea is never full. To the place where the rivers flow, there they continue to flow." Never full. As I read these verses and remembering where we left off last week, the writer of Ecclesiastes was talking about asking a question about what do we gain? What is the worth and value, the return, if you will, of our hard labor? And beginning to make the point about how much of life is inevitable and quickly turns from what human beings do to the rest of our siblings in creation, the sun and the moon. And here we talk about the wind and the streams, the water, and how they operate in this continual basis, this routine basis, maybe even a never ending basis, or inevitable rituals and progress. This is the flow of the wind, the writer is telling us, and around and around and around and around, and it just goes over and over again. And this idea of streams, and just for a moment, picture a stream flowing. And from wherever it begins, it's going somewhere, right? Streams go with gravity, they go with the momentum, they go in one direction. You don't have water moving in multiple directions. Typically, there are exceptions to that, where streams, talk about swimming upstream. Well, the streams or the rivers will actually change the directional flow, but they're still with that patterns and reasoning behind why that happens, where it occurs. For instance, the St. Johns River in Jacksonville, Florida, where my mother's side of my family is from. It's a river that goes in the opposite direction of most rivers, but there's a reason that happens. And what the writer is talking about is the routine and the predictability and inevitability of nature, of creation, and of life itself. I was captured as I was reviewing these words by this part. All streams flow to the sea, but the sea is never full. And if we think about how nature can so often give us a glimpse into divine workings, how what we can see and what's manifested in the physical realm of things is often an indication and a hint to the spiritual side of things that we cannot see. And so the stream has the same essence as the sea. It is connected to the sea. And you cannot, if you were to look at the contents of the stream and the contents of the sea, which both hold water, they are the same. They cannot be distinguished. There's consistency there. The essence of the sea is found in the essence of the stream. Where else do we see that? We also see that in terms of the creator and creation. And particularly as we know that human beings were created in the divine image, imprinted on our DNA, and say, well, what does that mean? Is that there's something essential, the essence of us, the essential about us, that reflects what is essential about God. And there's a connection there. And if God is the sea, that that destination, that source, because I imagine, you think about a sea, streams and rivers flow into it, but they also flow out. There's no sea that's ever quite contained. And that's part of the reason that it's never full, because it's never quite contained. There are ways in and out, flowing in and out. Even if they're little creeks, brooks here and there, they're not the major waterways that we might recognize easily. Maybe it's even just a little trickle out into ground. The sea is never full. And so if you're part of the stream, let's say you're the water in the stream, and so you're flowing. You're going in the direction that momentum is taking you, that gravity is taking you. You're being pulled in the direction that the sea, this endpoint you're being brought to it by a force that is compelling you to move in that direction and to enter into its much more vast, compared to the stream, much more vast territory and existence and space. And depending upon the ratio you're entering into, it may not even cause a real ripple, but it causes a ripple, and the sea knows it. But the sea is never full, because the sea is always able to make room. Sometimes I hear people talk about prayer and they don't pray for something because this isn't significant enough, or God doesn't have time God doesn't need to deal with this. Now, I do believe that sometimes we have to pray with our feet and our hands and our actions and our behaviors, and we have to bring our energy as much as our words and our desires into our prayers. But I believe pray without ceasing means what it says. That we should have a life of prayer, and that we should take it all and let it all flow to the source, because the source is never full. The source is never overburdened. The source is the place where rivers flow, or that they continue to flow. One of our names for God, Jesus Christ, is living water. There's a song, I think it's Casey J, where the words of the refrain, "Your love is a never-ending well, and it never runs dry." God's love, God's presence, everything that God is and that God brings into being, God's essential self, has an inexhaustible supply, and an inevitable one as well. And while trials and tribulations may seem like those are the only things that are inevitable, the only things that we can really count on is the chaos of life, the disruptions that happen in our life, the ebbs and flows, the hills and the valleys, the struggles and the challenges. But you know what's really inevitable is that our source, our supply, our living water, to whom we may flow, is never full. Thank you for joining me for another weekly wisdom. I pray that this has been a time of blessing for you. As I share my thoughts with you, I pray you'll also share your thoughts with me. That's what the comments are for. Let me hear how God is speaking to you through this passage or through other passages that maybe have come to mind, or just the musings and reflections of your heart. Like this video if you'd like to see more content of this nature and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share it as you so desire. Please help and spread the word. Until next time, love God, love your neighbor, and love yourself. Thank you for joining me on the journey, and I will see you next time.